What in my experience right now is true? What do I know in my experience is actually true? Where is this truth? Is there any truth in my experience right now? And if there is, what is it? Where is it? You see, often we don't even ask these kinds of questions because we're so busy pursuing the particular state of mind or feeling that we want. We're so driven to have a better experience that often we don't take very many moments to actually just stop for a moment and go, what's actually true in my experience? What's true right now, right here? What's true? Of course, when we start asking that question, if we ask it in a very intimate way, in a very quiet way, in a way that we're actually really looking, generally what a question like that is going to help us see is what's not true. A question like what is really true, it calls into question everything that's not. Make sense? What's true about my belief? What belief can I know with certainty is true? Not that kind of false certainty, where we've all believed in things that were true, have we not? That we later found out weren't true? I mean, things we all had great amount of certainty in, right? So one can feel very sort of emotionally, intellectually, have a certainty about what they think is truth, but that's obviously no good indication of truth, because two morons lobbing dirt clods at each other because they each think they're truth, they feel like they're in truth, right? I mean, somebody that flies airplanes into big buildings in New York City, they are very certain they're in truth. They're so certain they'll give their life up for it. They have no doubt. They're certain. Do you know? About as certain as your average person is when they try to dominate another human being with their idea, with their point of view. So we can have a sort of emotional, even intellectual certainty. But that is very ephemeral, actually. If we actually look in our lives, we see that kind of certainty has let us down, has things that we thought were certain didn't end up to be so certain after all. So the beautiful thing about what is really true is not that we immediately get some answer, it's that it highlights, it helps call into question everything that we have never called into question. And it leads us experientially, not just intellectually, but experientially, it leads us into this sort of uncertainty. When everything gets called into question, you start to feel a certain kind of uncertainty. And the more you look into it, the more uncertain you get. Now, in lots of spiritual traditions, they would call this opening to the experience of the unknown. But that sounds very mysterious, doesn't it? Opening to the experience of the unknown. It sounds sort of mystical and we can really get all sort of caught up in all ideas about the unknown, When the unknown is when you look inside and you start to realize, geez, what do I know is true for certain. And then if you really look inside, you start to look and you feel that certain kind of uncertainty, right? That's the unknown. The other kind of unknown, that's a spiritual fantasy. The sort of cloudy, mysterious unknown. That's not what they're talking about. That has nothing to do with the unknown. That's an idea of a safe place. The unknown is a place of great, intimate, beautiful insecurity. Not beautiful if you don't push it away, it's kind of not so beautiful if you run from it. You're afraid of it. So this is actually a very delicate thing, is it not? I mean, how many people in history have looked for what's true? Great minds. I can guarantee you, most of them have been greater than my mind. I don't know how you would measure yourself up against all the truth seekers throughout history, but I would imagine they could probably get through our greatest universities with straight A's, most of them. And yet, how many found truth? How many found it? How many philosophers that all disagree with each other found it? And how would you know if they found it? How could you be certain? The greatest minds throughout all of history have looked at this question, have they not? Great minds have looked at this, which is actually part of the problem. It's the great minds, it's the minds that's looking for it. And of course, the place that the mind usually looks for truth is in the mind, because the mind is certain that everything of great value is to be found in its mind. At least if you're a mentally oriented person, intellectually oriented person. If you're not, then you're probably more an emotionally oriented person, and you'll be looking for truth in how you feel. So if you feel really, really good, you'll think, well, this must be true because I feel really great. And if you feel really bad, you must think must be very untrue because I feel really bad. Is that making sense to everybody? I think we've all done a little bit of both, have we not? And so it leads one sort of quite at, if you see this, it leaves you quite at the end of, it's almost like very quickly you get to the sort of the edge of the cliff. When you realize, my God, the greatest minds in the world have looked for truth in the mind, in concepts, in ideas, in symbolic, conceptual language, whatever language that is. Oneself has probably looked for truth in that way. And then there's people that start to refer to how do I feel, to tell them what's true. Well, when we see through those, when we see that we don't find actually any lasting, ultimate truth in them, these are the two arenas through which we do our seeking, are they not? In our minds and in our feelings. That's how we seek. Intellectually and emotionally. And that's the beauty of this drive within each being of existence to come into, to wake up to itself, to become conscious of itself. Part of becoming conscious of itself is seeing the limitation in which it usually has been looking for truth, for freedom.